Some people think children are innocent. Some people believe kids don't understand the darkness that lives behind closed doors. Those people have never met a Mitchell family child. Because when a 9-year-old decides to destroy a grown man, she doesn't just succeed, she leaves nothing but ash and regret in her wake. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I just turned 18, and I still remember every single detail of the plan that saved my mother's life and ended my father's world. What happened that Thanksgiving wasn't an accident. It wasn't a lucky break or divine intervention. It was surgical precision executed by a child who learned that sometimes the only way to protect your family is to annihilate the threat completely. The bruises always told a story, but Marcus had trained me to lie about the ending. For 3 years, my mother Rachel lived in a prison of fear, while my father perfected the art of public charm and private terror. He was a respected business manager, active in community organizations, the kind of man who donated to charities and coached Little League. His co-workers thought he was hilarious. His friends considered him generous. Even his own family believed he was the patient, long-suffering husband of a difficult woman. But I saw everything. I watched him grab Mom by the throat over burnt toast. I heard him call her worthless for forgetting his dry cleaning. I witnessed him shove her into walls, throw objects at her head, and reduce her to tears over imagined failures that existed only in his twisted mind. Mom tried to hide it from me, but 9-year-old eyes see more than adults realize. I knew the pattern. His footsteps on the stairs meant danger. His particular tone of voice meant someone was about to get hurt, and Mom's forced smiles meant another piece of her soul had been chipped away. What broke me wasn't just watching him hurt her. It was watching her shrink. This brilliant woman who helped me with advanced math homework and could fix anything that broke in our house gradually became smaller, quieter, more invisible with each passing month. She stopped singing while cooking. She stopped laughing at movies. She started jumping whenever someone raised their voice, even on television. The final straw came on an ordinary Tuesday morning. I was eating cereal before school when Marcus exploded because Mom had bought the wrong brand of coffee. He grabbed the mug from her hands and hurled it at the wall, ceramic shards exploding everywhere. Then he seized her wrist, twisting it until she cried out, screaming that she was too stupid to do anything right. As Mom knelt on the kitchen floor picking up broken pieces with trembling hands, I made a decision that would change everything. I was done being a helpless witness. I was going to become something far more dangerous, a strategist. Mrs. Patterson had assigned our class a family dynamics project, asking us to document how our households functioned and communicated. Most kids complained about the assignment, but I saw opportunity wrapped in homework requirements. When I asked Mom to help me understand the project, her face went pale. She tried to explain that some family matters were private, that not everything needed to be shared or recorded. But I pressed harder, mentioning that Mrs. Patterson had specifically discussed documentation as a tool for understanding and protection. That night, after Marcus had screamed himself hoarse over some trivial offense and slammed the bedroom door like a petulant child, Mom found me in my room. She looked exhausted, holding an ice pack against her shoulder where he'd grabbed her. When she asked what I was really planning with my school project, I decided to trust her with the truth. I told her I knew he was hurting her. I told her I'd been thinking about ways to make it stop. And I told her I had an idea that might work, but I needed her permission to be careful in ways she might not understand. Mom's first instinct was to protect me from involvement, to insist this was an adult problem requiring adult solutions. But when I showed her the hidden recording app on my school tablet and explained how I could document evidence without Marcus ever knowing, something shifted in her expression. Hope warred with terror across her features as she realized her 9-year-old daughter was proposing to build a case against her abuser using methods she'd never considered. The next month became a masterclass in covert operations. I studied Marcus like a scientist studying a dangerous specimen, learning his patterns, his triggers, his blind spots. The tablet became my weapon of choice, positioned innocuously around the house during his worst moments, propped behind books during dinner arguments, hidden in the living room during his alcohol-fueled rages, tucked between kitchen appliances when he cornered Mom for his daily dose of psychological torture. Marcus never suspected his own daughter was documenting his crimes. To him, I was just background noise, a child to be dismissed when convenient and controlled when necessary. His arrogance became his downfall. He performed his abuse with complete confidence that no consequences would ever find him, that his word would always carry more weight than Mom's bruises, that his reputation would shield him from accountability. But I wasn't just collecting random footage. I was building an airtight case with the methodical precision I'd inherited from my grandfather. Every video was time-stamped and cataloged. Every incident was correlated with photos of injuries, medical visits, and behavioral changes. I created backup files stored in multiple locations, sent copies to secure email accounts, and even mailed evidence to trusted adults who could act if something happened to me. The breakthrough came when I decided to involve Grandpa Colonel directly. He'd always been my hero, this decorated military officer who commanded respect wherever he went and never backed down from protecting his family. During one of our weekly phone calls, I carefully probed his thoughts about bullies and people who hurt others. His response was exactly what I'd hoped. Anyone who harmed his daughter would face consequences that would make military tribunals look merciful. That's when I sent him the first sample video. Just enough to confirm his worst suspicions without overwhelming him with the full scope of Marcus's abuse. Grandpa's response was swift and terrifying in its controlled fury. He wanted details. He wanted evidence. He wanted a complete picture of what his daughter and granddaughter had been enduring while he remained unaware and unable to help. I gave him everything. 43 days of documented violence, emotional manipulation, and systematic destruction of Mom's spirit. Hours of footage showing Marcus's true nature behind the mask of respectability he wore for the world. Audio recordings of threats, photographs of injuries, medical records from emergency room visits where Mom lied about falling downstairs or walking into doors. Grandpa's reaction exceeded my most optimistic projections. This wasn't just personal outrage. This was military justice preparing to rain down on a target who'd made the fatal mistake of threatening a colonel's family. He began coordinating with base legal offices, gathering allies in law enforcement, and preparing what he called a comprehensive response to domestic terrorism. But I knew documentation alone wouldn't be enough. Marcus needed to be caught in the act, exposed in front of witnesses who couldn't deny what they'd seen. That's when I realized Thanksgiving dinner would provide the perfect stage for his downfall. His entire family would be present, giving him an audience for his performance of superiority while creating multiple witnesses to his true nature. I spent weeks preparing for that Thanksgiving like a general planning a decisive battle. Every detail mattered. The timing of revelations, the positioning of evidence, the psychological pressure points that would make Marcus crack in front of the people whose approval he craved most. I studied his family dynamics, identifying the allies who enabled his behavior, and the weak points that might turn against him when confronted with undeniable proof. Marcus's family had always been complicit in his treatment of Mom, but their cruelty took on new dimensions during holiday gatherings. His mother Diana would make cutting remarks about Mom's appearance and intelligence. His brother Joel and sister Patricia treated her like hired help, dismissing her contributions while praising Marcus's patience for putting up with such an inadequate wife. They created an atmosphere where abuse seemed not just acceptable, but inevitable. This Thanksgiving would be different. This time, their casual cruelty would be recorded and cataloged along with everything else. This time, their complicity would have consequences beyond Mom's private humiliation. This time, they would learn that some families fight back with precision that leaves no survivors. The morning of Thanksgiving, Marcus was already on edge. Holiday stress always amplified his need to control and dominate, turning minor inconveniences into pretexts for violence. He'd already exploded twice before his family arrived, once over the placement of decorations, and again over the sound of Mom breathing too loudly while she cooked. Each incident was captured in perfect high-definition clarity. When his family descended on our house like well-dressed vultures, they immediately began their ritual humiliation of Mom. Diana criticized her cooking, her appearance, her housekeeping skills. Joel made jokes about Marcus marrying beneath his station. Patricia offered backhanded compliments designed to reinforce Mom's inadequacy. And Marcus not only failed to defend his wife, but actively participated in diminishing her in front of the people who mattered most to him. I watched it all through the lens of my tablet, documenting each cruel comment. Each moment Marcus chose his family's approval over his wife's dignity. But I also watched something else building in Mom's posture, a tension that suggested she was approaching her own breaking point. When Joel started talking about his wife's career success and comparing it to Mom's lack of ambition, I saw something snap behind her eyes. Mom's explosion was magnificent and devastating. 3 years of accumulated pain poured out in a torrent of truth that left Marcus's family stunned. She called out their complicity, their cruelty, their willingness to participate in her destruction for their own entertainment. She named their behavior for what it was: abuse by proxy, cowardice disguised as family loyalty, moral bankruptcy dressed up in holiday tradition. Marcus's response was swift and predictable. The mask slipped completely as he stood up, his hand raised, his face contorted with rage at being embarrassed in front of his family. The slap that followed echoed through the dining room like thunder, a moment of violence so pure and undeniable that even his enablers couldn't pretend it was anything else. But this time was different. This time, there was a witness who wouldn't stay silent. I stepped forward from my position by the window, my tablet clutched against my chest like a shield. 12 pairs of eyes turned toward me, but I only focused on Marcus, studying his face as realization began to dawn. His confident sneer faltered when he saw something in my expression that he'd never noticed before: calculation. "You shouldn't have done that, Daddy," I said, my voice steady and eerily calm for a 9-year-old. "Because now Grandpa is going to see." The color drained from Marcus's face like water from a broken dam. His family exchanged confused glances, but I saw understanding creeping into their expressions as they began to grasp that something had gone terribly wrong with their perfect family performance. "What are you talking about?" Marcus demanded, but his voice cracked with the first notes of genuine fear. I tilted my head, studying him with the cold assessment of a predator who'd cornered her prey after months of patient hunting. "I've been recording you, Daddy. Everything. For weeks. And I sent it all to Grandpa this morning." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus's family began to shift uncomfortably in their chairs, finally understanding that they weren't just witnesses to domestic abuse, but active participants whose cruelty had been documented alongside his violence. "He said to tell you," I continued, letting each word drop into the silence like stones into still water. That he's on his way. That's when the begging began. Marcus lunged toward me, his hand raised to strike, but I was ready. "I wouldn't," I said calmly, not moving an inch. "Because Grandpa said to tell you something else. He said real men don't hurt women and children. He said bullies who hide behind closed doors are cowards. And he said anyone who touches me will answer to him personally." The sound of engines in our driveway cut through Marcus's desperate protests. Car doors slamming. Heavy footsteps on the front porch. The front door didn't open. It exploded inward like it had been blown apart by the force of righteous fury itself. Grandpa Colonel filled the doorway like an avenging angel, his military bearing unmistakable even in civilian clothes. Behind him stood two other officers I recognized from base functions, both wearing expressions that could have melted steel. The dining room fell silent except for the sound of Diana's wine glass shattering on the floor. Grandpa's eyes took in everything. Mom's swollen cheek, Marcus's guilty posture, his family's stricken faces, and me standing protectively beside my mother with evidence still clutched in my hands. When he spoke, his voice carried the quiet authority of someone who'd commanded troops through war zones. "Sit down," he said to Marcus, and the command was so absolute that Marcus's knees buckled. He collapsed into his chair while his family remained frozen, afraid to move or speak. What followed was systematic destruction delivered with military precision. Major Williams placed evidence folders on the dining table. Video documentation, audio recordings, medical records, photographs of injuries. Captain Rodriguez explained the legal charges being filed: assault and battery, domestic violence, terroristic threatening, harassment, intimidation of witnesses. Marcus's family watched in horror as their golden boy was methodically dismantled by professionals who specialized in justice. When Diana tried to claim ignorance, Grandpa played audio recordings of her calling Mom worthless and stupid. When Joel attempted to minimize the situation, Captain Rodriguez showed him video footage of Marcus throwing coffee mugs at his wife's head. When Patricia suggested they could handle this privately, Major Williams explained that Child Protective Services was already involved due to reports from my teacher. The restraining order was served with clinical efficiency. Marcus was ordered to vacate the house immediately, to have no contact with Mom or me, to surrender all weapons and personal items under supervised removal. His family, faced with undeniable evidence of their complicity, abandoned him faster than rats fleeing a sinking ship. "You can't believe them," Marcus pleaded as his relatives filed out of the house like mourners leaving a funeral. "I'm your son, your brother, your family. Family doesn't do what you've done," Patricia said without looking back. "Family protects each other." As Grandpa helped Mom pack a bag for our stay at his house, Marcus sat alone at the dining room table, staring at the wreckage of his life. Everything he'd built through manipulation and intimidation had crumbled in less than an hour, destroyed by a child who'd learned that bullies only understand consequences. "Sarah," he called out as we prepared to leave. "I'm your father. I love you." I turned back to look at him one final time, this man who'd terrorized my mother and taught me that might makes right, that fear was a tool of control, that women existed to absorb male rage without complaint. "No," I said with devastating finality. "Fathers protect their families. Fathers make their children feel safe. You're just the man who used to live here." The conviction came swiftly. Faced with overwhelming evidence and abandoned by his support system, Marcus pled guilty to multiple charges rather than face trial. 2 years in prison, followed by mandatory counseling and supervised visitation rights he'd never exercise. His career imploded, his reputation lay in ruins, and his family treated him like a stranger who'd borrowed their name for criminal purposes. Mom and I moved into a bright apartment with locks that actually meant security and windows that let in sunlight without fear. She enrolled in nursing school, pursuing dreams Marcus had convinced her she was too stupid to achieve. I continued my education with the knowledge that intelligence combined with strategic thinking could topple giants who seemed untouchable. The child who saved her family with an iPad and careful planning grew into a girl who understood that sometimes justice requires precision rather than mercy. Mom works in an emergency room now, helping other people who come in with accidents and falls, recognizing the signs she'd once hidden so carefully. But the story doesn't end with our escape. 3 years later, at age 12, I still maintain the evidence files, backed up in multiple secure locations. When Marcus was released from prison and tried to contact me with letters asking for forgiveness, I didn't respond. When other kids at school asked if I felt bad about getting my father in trouble, I explained that he'd gotten himself in trouble by making violent choices. I'd simply ensured those choices had consequences. The real revelation came when Rebecca, a girl in my class, told me her stepfather was hitting her mother. Without hesitation, I gave her my old tablet and taught her how to use the recording app. "Remember," I told her, "you're not tattling. You're gathering evidence. And evidence is power." Some people think what I did was extreme. They believe children shouldn't have to save their families, that adults should handle adult problems, that 9-year-olds can't possibly understand the implications of destroying someone's life. Those people don't understand that when adults fail to protect children, children learn to protect themselves with whatever tools are available. Marcus had 3 years to learn what consequences feel like. Whether that was enough time for him to become a better person remains his choice, but he'll never get the chance to hurt us again. I made sure of that. Sometimes justice looks like a child with a tablet and a plan. Sometimes revenge is simply letting the truth speak for itself. And sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one everyone assumes is powerless. Because Mitchells protect their own. We don't back down from bullies. And we never, ever forget people who hurt the ones we love. We just make sure they face consequences that match their crimes. The sound of that slap still echoes in my memory, but now it sounds different. Not like the breaking of a spirit, but like the starting gun of a race Marcus never knew he was running. A race he lost to a 9-year-old girl who understood that sometimes the smallest person in the room holds all the power, as long as she's smart enough to use it.